Today, the fuel shortage worsens in the southeast. Gas prices are rising and lines are forming at pumps as a pipeline recovers from a cyber attack. Inflation heats up. Consumer prices up more than expected last month, hitting a 13-year high. We talked to businesses and experts about what's behind the surge. And a big win for Amazon. An EU court says it doesn't have to pay a massive tax bill. That and much more, coming up on NTD Business. Good evening. Great to have you with us. Gas shortages are getting worse. 28% of gas stations in North Carolina don't have fuel. A trucker shortage and a disruptive cyber attack on a gas pipeline are to blame. North Carolina is facing the biggest shortage, but multiple states in the southeast are affected. Some of it's down to panic buying. The White House has now issued waivers to ease quality standards for gasoline. It's also extended working hours for fuel truckers to boost shipments. At the same time, though, Colonial Pipeline is trying to recover after a cyber attack and expects to resume operations by the end of the week. It's one of the biggest and most important pipelines in America. AAA says gas is now above $3 a gallon on average. That's the highest since 2014. And inflation is speeding up too. Consumer prices rose 4.2% year over year. That's the fastest rate in about 13 years. NTD's Tom Ozimek has the details.
U.S. consumer prices have soared above economists' predictions and by the most in over a decade. It's fueling fears of a prolonged bout of higher inflation. The Labor Department said Wednesday that the Consumer Price Index, or CPI, jumped by 4.2% year over year in April. This is the largest 12-month increase since September 2008, when the index rose by 4.9%. On a monthly basis, the CPI inflation gauge jumped 0.8% in April. The so-called core CPI, which excludes the volatile food and energy components, soared by 0.9%, the largest monthly increase since 1982. A major contributor to the monthly inflation spike was the price index for used cars and trucks. It surged by a record 10% in April, the largest monthly increase in history. The sharp rise in inflation is likely to stoke fears of an interest rate hike by the Fed, although Federal Reserve officials have played down the concerns by predicting that price rises would be transitory. They've also repeatedly said they will not raise rates or reduce the monthly bond buying program until inflation averages around 2% for a prolonged period. Tom Ozimek, NTD News.
The Morton Williams supermarket chain in New York says the cost of many of its grocery products has increased dramatically over the past few months. Prices were pretty steady during lockdowns, but since things have started moving again, products are getting more expensive. A cut of filet mignon beef that cost around $12 a pound now costs $17. A container of berries that cost $3 now costs $5. This is trying not to pass the costs onto the consumer, but that's not easy. So I asked the co-owner Avi Kaner what's causing the sudden spike in prices.
Well, Paul, what we're seeing is a perfect storm of many things happening at the same time. The first is it's the tail end of the pandemic. So if we rewind back, say, a year ago, 14 months ago when the pandemic started, production shifted dramatically. For example, farmers had to reduce the crops that they harvested. And, you plant crops, it takes time for them to produce. There was lack of demand 14 months ago as restaurants closed, airlines closed, cruise ships shut down. A year ago, there was a severe shortage of labor being able to even do the crops, harvest the crops, and same with the meat industry of breeding cattle, which takes a year and a half, to get into the supply chain. So now suddenly the pandemic is, God willing, nearing an end. But as a result, a lot of restaurants are reopening. The airlines are getting much fuller again. Even cruise ships are beginning to operate again. Schools are reopening. And all of these are sources of demand for product. So the supply is constrained, yet the demand is increasing. So that drives up the costs. The other issue is transportation and gasoline costs. Whereas, say, a year ago, it cost $6,000 or $7,000 to bring a tractor trailer with product from the West Coast to the East Coast, it's now $10,000. So as a result, the prices of the goods reflect those additional costs.
Kainer thinks the price inflation will indeed pass as supply chains and production get back on track. It's hard to say when that will be. But it's not just food. Everything is more expensive. The higher prices follow a massive rise in the cost of commodities. Everything from lumber to steel to coffee, animal feed, they've all shot up dramatically this year. I wanted to know how producers look at an environment like this, so I talked to successful American manufacturer Kerry Smith. Smith sold his business Big Ass Fans for $500 million. He now runs venture capital firm Unorthodox Ventures.
Tell you what I think is interesting about it is the perception is, at least from the banks, is that it's going to be short term. But I don't know. I find that very odd. I know they would like to see that it's not inflationary, that those prices will go down, but I don't know where they're getting that, honestly.
Why do you feel it will continue, or it may continue?
Well, why wouldn't it continue? I mean, those are commodities. You can obviously, there's a surfeit of demand. I think the prices were relatively. The point is that the prices last year at this time, and that's what all of these percentage increases are based on, were relatively low because of the pandemic. And a lot of some of these commodities come from China, and so that would make that would have an impact, and consequently, conceivably, the prices will stabilize after a bit this year. But I mean, I don't know. I thought it was interesting because it's a real political hot potato, because the interest rates are so low and the government is pumping so much money into the economy, which would be exactly the wrong thing to do if you're worried about inflation.
As a producer, we hear a lot about, these higher costs will eventually be passed on to the consumer. As a producer, do you ever think to yourself, how much is the consumer willing to pay? Do you ever think, is it even worth producing these goods at these high prices?
Well, the problem is, I think it's from a purely economic perspective, I think people imagine that naturally the prices go up, that the producer, that the manufacturer finds it very easy to raise prices. Manufacturers find it very difficult to raise prices. As a matter of fact, they typically are so far behind the curve that it affects them considerably. And so ultimately, the prices have to be passed on. They have to be. I mean, it's an increase in your production cost. But there is always, at least with smaller manufacturers, and when I say smaller, manufacturers, producers that are under $1 billion revenue, find it a little difficult to raise prices because there's always the potential of you're raising a price and your competitor isn't, and consequently going to lose margin or sales when that happens. So it's a little stickier than I think a lot of people imagine that it is. But yes, ultimately, it has to happen.
Kerry Smith, Unorthodox Ventures. So it seems there are lockdown-induced problems on the supplier side that are slowing production and pushing up prices. But economist and president at Euro-Pacific Capital, Peter Schiff, says there's more to the rising prices than just supply chain problems.
It's not the main cause, but certainly I was talking about this early on in the pandemic. A lot of people weren't going to work, and so they weren't on the job helping to make things. And so sure, the supply chains got backlogged. But of course, you always have a supply problem or a shortage of supply when you have a surplus of money. And that is the predominant culprit. All the money that's being printed is being used to bid up products. You have a lot of people who have a lot of money to spend, but they didn't earn any of it. They didn't go to a job where they helped produce goods and supply services. They just stayed at home and received a government check. So the government can print money, but it can't create products for the money to buy. So that's the problem. Not so much a shortage of goods, but a surplus of dollars.
And I believe in one of your recent writings, you feel the CPI number is even underestimated. How does that work?
Well, I don't think the CPI does a good job of capturing the true extent to which prices are rising. And I think that's deliberate. I think it's by design. The government doesn't want to report honest numbers on inflation. It has a vested interest in pretending inflation is less than it really is. And so I don't believe these CPI numbers. But even if you accept them on face value, prices have risen by 2% during the first 4 months of the year. So if you annualize that, that's a 6% rise in consumer prices. But I wouldn't want to analyze it, because if you look at the monthly numbers, there's a clear trend. Every month is higher than the month before. The month we just got, April, 0.8%, that's the biggest increase in 1 month going back to 1981, the year I graduated high school. But if you extrapolate the monthly trend to the end of the year, you're looking at a 20% year-over-year rise in consumer prices in the United States. That's 10 times the Fed's official 2% target.
That's really incredible figures. What do you think a regular American should do, people who are watching?
Stock up. Go out and buy everything you're going to need, but buy it now. I mean, things that are non-perishable, items that you're going to need around the house, whether it's toiletries, cleansers, food, things like that, just buy it now. Because number one, a lot of this stuff may not even be available in the future because other people have hoarded it before you got a chance to buy. But there could also be price controls in the future, which will really result in shortages. But why wait to buy something in a year where it may cost 10, 20, 30% more? Why not just buy it now? What's the point in sitting on the cash? It's just going to depreciate in value. You might as well turn it into something that you can actually use.
You don't think we're going to see price controls in the U.S., do you?
Well, we had them in the 1970s. And so why wouldn't we have it again? You know, government never learns from its mistakes. And it was a mistake for Richard Nixon to introduce price controls in the 70s. And it will be a mistake for Joe Biden to introduce them now. But that doesn't mean they won't make the mistake. I mean, governments have a habit of repeating their mistakes.
What do you feel then? Obviously, we have the extended unemployment benefits. People say it's discouraging people from going back to work. We have these stimulus checks that are apparently causing the main driver of the inflation. What do you think the answer is? Do you think we're going to get a sufficient answer during the foreseeable future?
No, we're just going to have much higher prices in the foreseeable future and in the immediate present. But yes, those very generous extended unemployment benefits are highly inflationary because, number one, the government has to print the money to fund the benefits. But number two, those benefits are directly resulting in fewer people going to work. And so those people are not helping to produce goods or provide services, but they're spending a lot of money. So you have fewer goods and services to buy, but more consumers trying to buy them with more money, and so that pushes prices way up.
Peter Schiff, Euro Pacific Capital. And in line with what Schiff just said, some small businesses say generous unemployment benefits are discouraging people from going back to work. Retailer Avi Kaner, who we heard from earlier, he told me some former employees asked, why would they go back to work when they can earn so much staying at home? Now a new report says record numbers of small businesses are struggling to fill job openings. NTD's Colin Fredrickson has the details.
A record number of small businesses can't find enough workers. A new Federation of Independent Business report says 44% couldn't fill job openings in April. It's the third consecutive month unfilled job openings grew.
For a certain number of people, you make more money by not working because there are supplemental benefits that are given due to the pandemic and because of the higher unemployment rate.
One economist with the Economic Policy Institute says some workers aren't coming back because they have to take care of family or they have health concerns. And some blame President Biden's relief bill. It continues a $300 weekly enhancement to unemployment benefits.
Remember, Obama was doing $25 a week, so to give you an idea of how much we've turned up the volume on this sort of assistance.
Even some Senate Democrats are skeptical of the extra $300 benefit following the disappointing jobs report last week, and more states are opting out, saying the extra money is keeping workers from coming back. But Biden seems unlikely to change.
Well, we don't see much evidence of that. That is a major factor. We don't see that. Look, it's easy to say the line has been because of the generous unemployment benefits that it's a major factor in labor shortages. Americans want to work.
Trump administration chief economist Casey Mulligan finds that over 90% of workers continue working despite the benefits. But in a large country, all it takes is 3 to 4% to stop working, resulting in millions of job openings. Colin Fredrickson, NTD News.
And a big sell-off on Wall Street today, possibly prompted by that inflation data. The Dow fell 682 points, almost 2%. S&P 500 lost 89 points, 2.14%. The Nasdaq dropped 358 points, 2.6%. The Dow had its worst day since January. S&P 500 worst day since February. Energy was really the only gainer, advancing just 0.1%. That was boosted by rising crude prices. Brent nearly hit $70 during the day. Treasury yields rose, 10-year Treasury yield nearing 1.7% now. Gold, though, fell, despite the inflation fears, fell about 1%. With some positive news, sales are sizzling at Wendy's. Its same-store sales shot up almost 14% in the U.S., breezing past analyst forecasts. Profit nearly tripled. It's also raising its annual earnings outlook, betting that its bacon-loaded breakfast menu will lure more customers as restaurants reopen. Its morning offerings make up about a tenth of its sales. It also lifted its forecast for global sales. Good news at Japanese investment bank SoftBank. It seems to be bouncing back fast. Today it posted full-year net profit of over $45 billion. It's just a year after it posted a record loss. That makes it one of the world's most profitable firms. But 80% of the net profit came from its investment arm, Vision Fund, including investment gain from South Korean e-commerce firm Coupang. Coupang is viewed as an Amazon rival. SoftBank invested billions of dollars in it. It also invested in office-sharing firm WeWork, ride-hailing companies Grab, China's Didi, and TikTok owner ByteDance. Much of the fund's gain is fueled by the global tech rally, not so good today, and it's on paper only, locked up in the stock market. And a top European court says Amazon was wrongly ordered to pay over $300 million in back taxes. It's a big win for Amazon, but a setback for the EU's competition chief. NTD's Patrick Hayden has the details.
Europe's second highest court spared Amazon Wednesday from paying more than $300 million in back taxes. Back in 2017, the EU ordered Amazon to pay it as part of a crackdown against unfair tax deals between multinationals and EU countries. Now the court says Amazon did not enjoy a selective advantage in its tax deal with Luxembourg, which is where Amazon has its European headquarters. The decision marks a setback for European Competition Commissioner Margaret Vestager, who has aggressively used the bloc's state aid rules to tackle sweetheart tax deals. Here's what she had to say about it back in 2017.
That the tax ruling endorsed an unjustified method to calculate Amazon's taxable profits in Luxembourg. It enabled Amazon to shift almost 3/4 of its profits from the operating company to the holding company.
She said as a result, 3/4 of Amazon's profits in Europe remained untaxed. Vestager has a mixed record in getting companies to pay more taxes. In another case on the same day, French utility Engie lost its appeal against the EU. It has to pay back taxes of around $146 million to Luxembourg. Patrick Hayden, NTD News, London.
And a U.S. regulator is warning about the risk of investing in Bitcoin. The Securities and Exchange Commission says people need to weigh how much risk they can take before making the investment. The SEC says investors should know that Bitcoin and Bitcoin futures are highly speculative assets. They also should consider the lack of regulation and potential for fraud in the Bitcoin market. Last week, SEC Chair Gary Gensler said the crypto market could benefit from greater investor protection. Several companies have filed proposals for Bitcoin ETFs, but now it seems that won't happen anytime soon. Bitcoin is up over 500% in the past year. Ethereum, another cryptocurrency, hit another record high today. It's up in 2021 alone. It's up nearly 500% as well. The US is set to remove Xiaomi from its blacklist, and despite previous warnings, the company is controlled by the Chinese military. Here's Evelyn Lee with more.
The U.S. is set to remove Chinese phone maker Xiaomi from its investment blacklist. The Trump administration blacklisted it in January, saying it was owned or controlled by the Chinese military. It meant that Xiaomi would be delisted from U.S. exchanges. It would also be barred from accessing U.S. technology, hampering new product development. Xiaomi denied having ties to the Chinese military, then it sued the U.S. government. But questions have been raised about Xiaomi's founder and CEO Lei Jun. He's also a senior executive and shareholder of Chinese software company Kingsoft. The Epoch Times reports the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP's military commission, requested that Kingsoft be established. The Trump administration argued that U.S. investments in these companies support the expansion and development of the CCP's military. In 2015, Chinese leader Xi Jinping unveiled a new national strategy. It ensures that the Chinese military has access to civilian companies and research programs supporting the CCP's military modernization goals. A U.S. court sided with Xiaomi in March and halted the ban. Now court filings say the two sides will resolve the litigation without further contest. Analysts say the news is no guarantee that other firms will also be removed from the list. Evelyn Lee, NTD News.
Still to come, AAA is expecting a huge increase in travel for Memorial Day. But how much of an increase compared to last year? And the new grocery business celebrating its one-year anniversary. But how did the owners build a successful business from scratch during lockdown? That and more after this short break.
In uncertain times, people rush to buy physical gold and silver. It's strong, solid, dependable. Now is the time to buy from the trusted source, Westminster Mint. With 20 years experience, an A+ BBB rating, and our unconditional 30-day money-back guarantee, Westminster Mint is America's dealer. The best value in gold coins today is this newly released 2021 $50 American Gold Eagle coin, certified a perfect 70 by the world's largest grading service, NGC. At 1 full ounce of pure gold, this 2021 Gold Eagle is the biggest and most beautiful coin struck for circulation. Get yours now while you can at our exclusive low price. Call right now and get the Gold Eagle's perfect companion, the 2021 Silver Eagle, absolutely free with your purchase. With free shipping and a 30-day money-back guarantee, Westminster Mint is America's dealer. Hurry for your early release 2021 American Gold Eagle and free Silver Eagle before they're gone. Call now.
Hey Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry, I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Can birds draw pictures?
I don't have an answer for that.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
Memorial Day is just weeks away. And after being cooped up for more than a year, Americans are ready for the summer. As for Memorial Day weekend travel plans, AAA says it expects 60% more travelers this year than last year. That amounts to more than 37 million people traveling 50 miles or more from home. AAA credits the expected travel increase to rising vaccination rates and higher consumer confidence. And a couple in South London celebrate a remarkable year in building their own grocery business from scratch. Since the first lockdown last year, they've been working flat out to bring their dreams to reality. NTD's Neil Woodrow brings us their story.
Life partners Emma Soulsby and Lee Daly are also now partners in a business venture, the Magnificent Marrow. Both successful in the floral industry, Emma was due to have a floral installation for her first big celebrity wedding overseas, but then within a week and a half, both of them saw their regular jobs disappear as the first lockdown happened early in 2020. Then they decided to form a business together selling fresh produce. They haven't looked back. Lee talks about why they decided to start Magnificent Marrow.
To help people that were struggling to get food due to the first lockdown. And it was a sort of a success right from the start, really.
Initially, they worked from the back of a van doing 100 local deliveries a day during the lockdown. They soon needed a unit to work from and acquired one in Rains Park where they live. They started offering nationwide courier deliveries and after a few months opened the unit to customers on a Saturday.
We were getting up to sort of 100 people coming up and so we decided to sort of find a local store.
Emma had previously built up 10,000 followers from the wedding world on Instagram and used them to help promote the business, plus some special friends.
All of the celebrities I'd worked with in the past, I was like, please, can you share this new business? And they did, and it was incredible.
Starting a business in lockdown wasn't easy. They couldn't get hold of printer ink, so Emma was handwriting delivery notes at midnight every night. As novice grocers, it's also been a steep learning curve.
This is quite enjoyable for other people, not myself, but understanding little things like potatoes and standing there in front of everybody at the market and they're asking me what size and I'm just like, that size, I have no idea.
In the early days, they were also doing the deliveries themselves. Although they've moved on, life hasn't got any easier. They get up at 1 a.m, go to the market to buy produce for online orders, then back to the unit to pack the London delivery boxes to be collected at 6 a.m. Then it's off to the shop.
With our team, set up the shop, go home, have 2 hours sleep, get back up, and I'll then start on the wedding side of things.
Emma's wedding floral bookings are coming back, so while she works on those, Lee is working at the shop.
And then we will put the orders in for the shop about 6 o'clock while Lee is thankfully cooking our dinner, and then we crash about 8 o'clock, 8:30, and do it all over again the next day. 6 days a week.
They try to put customer service at the heart of the business.
Everyone that orders from us, everyone that emails us, everyone that gets in contact with us via Instagram or Facebook, it's so important to us. And
we give a personal response.
Yeah.
Making strong connections with people helps them too.
When you make a mistake personally, it's hard to get over when you're so tired, but then you've got these amazing bits of these connections that we've made.
Yeah.
It just makes everything so much better.
They've now gone beyond their fruit and veg range to offer products from London-based artisan suppliers, including meat, bread, cakes and cheese. Gift hampers are also available. They are supported by a dozen staff who Emma says have their backs, and without them, they wouldn't have been able to achieve what they have. Going forward, Emma plans to continue with her wedding floral business as well as joining Lee to create more stores and expand the Magnificent Marrow grocery business. The number of regulars here is growing and the ranges too. When it comes to fruit and veg, they know their onions. Neil Woodrow, NTD News, Rains Park, London.
So nice. That's the latest business updates for today. You can still catch NTD Evening News with Stephanie Cox. That's at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. For NTD Business, that's all for today. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
We have a new channel. Subscribe to us on YouTube at NTD News. Get the highlights of our news broadcast and the most important headlines that we curate especially for you.
Don't miss out on important news. Our videos are being deleted. So if you don't want to be cut off from honest news, take a moment to sign up for our newsletter at newsletter.ntd.com so you don't lose access to NTD. Go to newsletter.ntd.com to sign up for our evening newsletter.